The year is 1992, and the course of European history is being abruptly reset. The Cold War is over, the Iron Curtain is lifted, and on the ruins of division stands a newly reunified Germany. For the leaders of Europe, this moment was both an opportunity and a threat. There was only one way to ensure stability and perpetual peace after centuries of conflict: bind the continent together, not just in trade but in destiny. On a cold day in the Dutch city of Maastricht, 12 nations signed the Treaty on European Union, TEU. This document was the birth certificate of the modern European Union, EU, officially transforming the existing European Economic Community. This treaty was the ambitious blueprint for a political and economic giant, marking the deepest commitment to integration since the Treaty of Rome. The most revolutionary aspect, the very foundation of the modern EU, lay in its provisions. On the economic side, the treaty committed the member states to achieve economic and monetary union, EMU, setting a firm timeline for the creation of a single currency, the euro. This was not merely a convenient trade tool, it was a profound act of shared sovereignty. To ensure that the new currency would be stable, the treaty introduced the stringent Maastricht convergence criteria, strict limits on national debt and budget deficits. Nations would have to prove they were fiscally disciplined enough to exchange their venerable national currencies for the untested euro. Beyond economics, Maastricht introduced sweeping political provisions to define the scope and nature of the new union. It organized the EU's structure into the famous, if imperfect, three pillars. Pillar 1 was the established European communities, the economic core governed by supranational law. The two new pillars represented areas where member states agreed to cooperate, moving beyond mere trade. Pillar 2 established the Common Foreign and Security Policy, CFSP. For the first time, nations legally committed to coordinating their foreign policies and eventually framing a common defense. The goal was for Europe to speak with one strong voice on the global stage. Pillar 3 covered justice and home affairs, JHA, ensuring coordinated action on crime, asylum, immigration, and judicial matters across borders. But perhaps the most tangible political provision for the average person was the creation of European citizenship. This status was conferred alongside national citizenship and gave individuals the unprecedented right to live, work, and vote in local and European elections anywhere within the member states. It was a clear declaration: the EU was now a union of citizens, not just of states. With its new structure defined, the treaty solidified the overarching goals of the EU. These went far beyond economic growth. The Union was tasked with promoting peace, democracy, and prosperity, working for the sustainable development of Europe, and establishing an area of freedom, security, and justice without internal frontiers. This was the ideological framework for a truly united political space. These goals are realized through the engine of European commerce, the single market. Its vitality depends entirely on the principle of the four freedoms, which the treaty secured and deepened. These freedoms eliminate internal barriers, making the economic space function seamlessly. First is the free movement of goods, meaning products can circulate tariff-free and without regulatory hindrance. Second is the free movement of services, allowing businesses, from banks to construction firms, to operate and offer services across any border. Third is the free movement of capital, ensuring money can be invested and transferred without restriction. And fourth, the most visible to citizens, is the free movement of persons, which allows any EU national to live, work, study, or retire in any member state. These four freedoms are the economic bedrock upon which the entire EU project is built. With such broad provisions and lofty goals, How is the EU actually governed? The structure is a unique constitutional architecture that defies easy categorization. The government of Europe operates as a hybrid, neither a federal state like the US, nor a simple intergovernmental body like the UN. It is a system built on constantly balancing supranational authority, where laws supersede national ones, with intergovernmental cooperation, where governments retain veto power.
The integration requires some concession of sovereignty.
Absolutely not! We will veto this measure!
There has to be a middle ground, gentlemen. We must move forward together.
This complex governance is primarily executed through the political institutions of the EU, forming the famous institutional triangle. First is the European Commission. This is the executive and administrative arm. It is the sole body responsible for proposing all new EU legislation, managing the budget, and acting as the guardian of the treaties, ensuring all member states adhere to the rules set in Maastricht. Second is the European Parliament. This is the voice of the citizens. Since Maastricht, it gained significant legislative power, becoming a co-legislator alongside the Council. Its members are directly elected, ensuring democratic legitimacy in the lawmaking process. Third is the Council of the European Union. This is the voice of the member states. It is where national ministers from all member countries meet by policy area, e.g., finance ministers, environment ministers, to negotiate and approve laws. This body ensures that national interests are represented at the highest legislative level. To complete the institutional architecture, the Court of Justice of the EU, CJEU, ensures the uniform application and interpretation of EU law. This court, with its binding judgments, is the ultimate expression of the supranational commitment defined in Maastricht. Yet the treaty's passage was not seamless. It was a crisis. It faced ferocious public backlash across the continent, particularly over the transfer of sovereignty. It was initially rejected in a referendum in Denmark and only passed narrowly in France, forcing leaders to grant national opt-outs on key areas like the euro and justice policy. This intense political drama cemented the reality that the EU would always be a union struggling with its own identity. The Maastricht Treaty successfully created the modern union, the timetable for the Eurozone, and a continent bound by the four freedoms. But its enduring legacy is the tension it built into the system, the perpetual conflict between the ambition for deeper integration and the fierce defense of national control. As the treaty's chief architect, Jacques Delors, famously called it, the EU remains an unidentified political object. Maastricht was a necessary leap of faith, a blueprint for a future where European nations decided, after centuries of bloodshed, that their destiny was to share their sovereignty for the sake of lasting peace and shared prosperity.
Meanwhile,
Bye-bye.